Our movie starts with a girl named Karis. Her car breaks down on the road, so she gets out to call her mom and describe her location so she can come and pick her up. Karis sees a car behind her, and just as she tries to signal for help, the car drives away. Karis senses something is wrong, and as soon as she starts running, the car chases her, hits her, and kills her. Next, we go to the police office Betty, who is at home with her nephew Ben. Ben is upset with her because she refuses to buy him new hockey gear. Betty explains that she can't afford new gear but will get him used equipment instead. At that moment, Betty receives a call from her colleague Andy asking her to come to the crime scene of Karis. Next, we move to another police officer named Stacy, who is in the middle of the snow and gets startled when she sees a trap on the ground. She quickly removes it to prevent anyone from getting hurt. Betty then meets Karis's mother, Mary. Both are devastated by the loss of Karis. Betty assures Mary that the police will find the killer. Mary asks to see her daughter and Betty agrees. As soon as Mary sees Karis, she breaks down. Andy informs them that Karis suffered a severe blow from the car, had internal bleeding, and sustained numerous burns from being dragged on the ground. The mother continues to blame herself for being late to her daughter, but Andy reassures her that they have evidence and will track down the killer. Days go by and we see a surveyor named Beth. She is surveying land for an organization called WEC with the help of her fiancé, Ray. They start surveying the land and Beth communicates with Ray via walkie-talkie. Suddenly, Beth sees a crow flying overhead and smells something strange. She asks Ray if he smells it too, but he says he only smells normal air. Beth starts to feel an invisible presence chasing her. Her vision becomes blurry, and suddenly, the creature cuts her neck, mutilating her face. Betty and Andy arrive at the crime scene and speak with Ray, who is devastated over losing his fiancée. He tells them that Beth smelled something like blood and that he saw nothing attacking her. Betty finds it strange and asks him if he had been drinking, but he breaks down and doesn't respond. Ray becomes a suspect in the crime. We then see Stacy having breakfast in a diner, and a man named Donnie is staring at her. When the diner owner notices, Donnie gets up and leaves. After Stacy finishes her breakfast and goes outside, she finds Donnie blocking her car with his vehicle. When she asks him to move, he gives her a t-shirt with WEC written on it and starts flirting with her, inviting her to dinner. Stacy pretends to get a pen to write her number, but instead pulls out her gun and hits him with it. Donnie quickly moves his car and leaves. Meanwhile, Jessica and her boyfriend Gary are sitting in their car in the snowy woods. Suddenly, Gary sees a crow and smells something strange. When he asks Jessica if she smells it, she says no. Suddenly, they sense the movement of an animal above the car. Gary grabs his rifle and steps out to hunt it, but his vision becomes blurry and he disappears from Jessica's sight. Worried, Jessica calls out to him. Suddenly, he reappears, his intestines spilling out, and he dies right in front of her. Jessica is horrified and quickly gets back into the car, locking herself in out of fear. After a while, Betty and Andy arrive at the crime scene and realize that Beth and Gary died in the same manner but still don't know who the killer is. Betty decides to meet with Stacy to get her help with the cases since Stacy is good at tracking. However, Stacy initially refuses because she was suspended from the force for hitting someone who harassed her. After some persistence from Betty, Stacy agrees and they go to examine the bodies. Stacy informs them that the deaths were caused by a predator searching for its meal and then leaves. During this time, Betty notices that Francis, who works in forensics, is wearing a strange-looking necklace. When Betty sees it, Francis quickly hides it and starts performing weird rituals around the bodies. Later, Stacy visits her uncle Carlson and tells him about the two crimes. Carson prepares himself and tells her he will help solve the cases. They take some meat and their weapons and head to the crime scene, placing pieces of meat along the way. An invisible creature comes and takes the meat and they lose its track. They see a crow flying overhead and Carson asks Stacy if she smells anything, but she says she is not. They realize the monster is near. Suddenly the creature attacks Carson. Stacy fires her gun into the air towards the creature before it can kill Carson, and Karis's ghost briefly appears before disappearing again. Stacy takes her uncle Carson to the hospital. At the hospital, Betty arrives and is upset that they went alone. Stacy explains what happened, including seeing the ghost, and Betty reluctantly believes her. Andy arrives and tells them there is no ghost and that their imaginations are making them do unusual things. He leaves frustrated. When Carson regains consciousness, he asks about Karis's heart. The next day, Frances visits Karis's grave and finds her mother, Mary, there. They talk about Karis's talents and achievements and how she made it from failure to a success. There is a sign on the grave that reads WEC. Suddenly, a crow flies overhead and they smile. At night, we see Betty at home investigating the case. She discovers that the victims were associated with an organization called WEC, which invests in city land to build new developments. Chris had been fighting against this organization. Betty finds out that the organization had an unofficial permit for construction. She realizes that the deaths of Gary and Beth are linked to their involvement with WEC, and Karis's spirit is appearing to kill them as revenge. Betty then watches a video of Karis defending her land and opposing the organization's activities. Carson is also shown in the video supporting the organization and its projects. Betty understands that everyone who supports the organization is at risk. Betty goes to the morgue and asks Frances about Karis's body. Frances tells her it was moved, but Betty doesn't believe her and threatens to kill her if she doesn't reveal where the body is. Frances reluctantly admits that Mary knows where the body is. Betty goes to the hospital to tell Stacy what she's learned. Betty receives a call from Andy about a new crime scene. She and Stacy go there and find that Donnie has shot an elder woman. Donnie explains that he saw something moving in the woods and got scared, so he fired. He accidentally shot the woman. He is arrested for possessing an unlicensed weapon. The next day, Betty and Stacy visit Mary to find out where Karis's body is. Mary tells them that the spirit took it and explains that supporters of the organization want to erase your language and stories and take their land. Betty and Stacy get frustrated and leave. Meanwhile, Andy goes to see Frances and questions her, revealing that he saw her at the crime scene on the day Karis died. Frances doesn't say much, but when she sees Donnie in Andy's car, she runs after him before he leaves and tells him that she thought Donnie killed Karis. Betty receives a call from Ben, who tells her that he's going to the scholarship event organized by WEC. Betty rushes to catch up with him. Stacy, on the other hand, returns to Mary to know more about Karis. At that moment, Ben sees Karis's ghost and tells Betty what he sees. Betty urgently asks him to go home. On his way, he sees Karis's ghost chasing him as she transforms into a physical form. Ben manages to reach home injured in the leg and quickly descends to the basement. Betty arrives at her house and sees Karis inside. She shoots at her and hides with Ben. Soon after, Stacy arrives at the house. They manage to get Karis out and trap her in the trap they had prepared. Betty and Stacy shoot at her, but she doesn't die. Meanwhile, Mary decides to end the conflict and throws her daughter's heart into the fire. Karis falls to the ground and dies. Stacy hits her with an axe to ensure she is truly dead. When Andy arrives, they don't tell him anything because they know he won't believe them. Andy reveals that Donnie was the one who hit Karis. At that moment, Donnie is in Andy's car and smells a strange smell. Karis appears to him and kills him, making him her final victim. And that's it. If you like this recap, hit like, share, and subscribe to our channel to keep seeing content like this one. If you have any requests or thoughts, drop them below in the comment section and we will see you at the next one. Peace out.